Hello everyone, this is Daniel and brethren. Do not worry about this world. Do not worry about the cares of this world. Do not care about this world. Choose Jesus. Let me tell you for a reason that if you choose the world and Jesus, you will not get the reward of heaven, nor will you get heaven. You will worry too much and you won't have faith. So if you choose Jesus and only choose Jesus, then you will reap many rewards. However, if you choose Jesus, but then, fall, and if you basically go into the law of sin, and you'd rather choose sin when you already chose Jesus, then you will lose reward. And that reward is, the Bema seat, a home that you're basically going to, any involvement with certain aspects of your family, and everything like that. Do you really want your family? Instead of just being with God and just having Him to be with you and just, help you in heaven and basically just also married to Jesus? Would you rather have Jesus as your boyfriend and basically have Him as your social worker or anything like that? Would you rather have Him, teaching you as a teacher? Would you rather just have Him as appointed? Would you rather have family? Would you rather have a home? Because if you have the riches of heaven but don't own it, you don't own family, you do not have a husband, is it worth it anyway? Yes, because hell's worse. However, let me tell you right now, this world is nothing but dust. And let me tell you right now, you may think, oh, the trees are not dust because they're wood. They're made of wood. Well, the wood turns into dust, and you think, oh, the rocks cannot be dust, and the metal isn't dust, but sand is dust. The earth is made of dust. Everything that God created came from dust, and will turn into dust again. You think, oh, the sun isn't dust, but really, it's dust and fire. Fire is dust. It creates dust. You think, well, what about the stars? What about the space? What about water? Water turns into vapor. It really is dust that creates dust and creates lightning. Everything is dust, even we are dust. And you're thinking, oh, well, what about the soap? It came from oil, right? It came from plastic. That came from dust. It's a substance of dust. And when soap becomes part of you, it turns into dust. This world is perishable. This world is nothing but meaningless. Even gold is worthless. Everything on this earth is worthless. Everything on this earth means nothing. But God Himself is everlasting, and so is His heaven. That is everlasting. Everything is alive in heaven. There's golden skies, and there's beauty beyond beauty. And don't you think that in heaven that there's all kinds of living things that are in paradise? Even if you don't have rewards, you're still in paradise. Even if you don't earn anything, you still get paradise. So if you're unstable, if you think you don't have any faith, if you're getting a lot of support from people that have no faith, this is why you're getting a lot of support and not everyone else. You're having not a lot of faith, and everyone else thinks that way because, well, they're worried, and they're supporting. They feel like you. They feel like, you know, like you are worth everything to them. So what about having very little faith? Well, let me tell you something. It doesn't have to be this way. A lot of people are like you, but that means they're not very faithful. You put meaning in a lot of people. However, choose this. choose Jesus and only Jesus, choose the blood of Jesus and only the blood of Jesus that saves and redeems, believe in Him, and admit all of your sins towards Jesus, past, present, and future. And once you seal the deal, you'll be part of the 100 million in the church. Actually, that's funny because, well, the 100 million that are in church with Jesus, they're actually the saved people that have rewards. But you'll be left out of that church. Actually. Yes. You'll be part of, the 200 million. Which is not what you want. Because, let me tell you something. A person with two minds, the faith of God and faith of the world, if they have more faith in the world than God, they're going to hell. That's not works-based. That's actually a base theory that I have, that if you choose really Jesus and only Jesus, that's salvation. This is a salvational matter. And if you only choose Jesus, well, that's true salvation. However, if you're really worried about the world, well, you're worried about the spiritual matters. You're not having trust in Jesus. You're being part of the 2/3 of the people that are not in that kingdom of that church. So there's a lot of things that you're going to miss out in heaven if you choose part of the world as well as Jesus. I know it sounds sad, but you won't be sad in heaven, but you'll still wish that you would completely chosen Jesus. And if you are not part of the supper feast and all of that, it's as if you have been you've chosen hell. And all of that is, it's a meaningful but almost meaningless. Because choosing Jesus is a matter of if you completely choose Him other than anything else. If you choose everything else, you're going to hell. If you choose things more than Jesus, you're going to hell. If you choose Jesus more than everything else, but you still choose things on this planet, you go to heaven without reward. If you completely choose Jesus, you will have all the reward. Let me tell you two things again. If you choose Jesus with the world and more of Jesus than the world, you will not have any reward in heaven, but you also have heaven. And if you completely choose Jesus other than everything else, you will have all the reward. There are two things that are, it's really, your own testimony. Do you preach the word of the gospel of God and have all the fruit of love and all that? Or is the fruit really sour, but you're still preaching about Jesus, but you're second guessing or just worried spiritually, and you're not preaching to the testimony of God, and you're not really trying to get to people. Because remember, the people that have fruit are the people that have love, joy, peace, and faithfulness, gentleness, kindness, self-control, and long-suffering. And there's another thing that goes in, but that's mainly the ones that are, that are really in the fruits, There's usually 8 or 9 fruits that are listed in, really, the Bible. But then, if you have part of the fruits, if instead of peace, you have worry, and instead of joy, you have depression, it still matters if you have love. Remember, you should have a lot of fruit in your life. And humility, instead of humility and pride, that's pretty much out the door because you chose the world. Humility, at its fullest, you get to own the world. But if you have only a little humility, well, you don't own the world, but you still have some reward. Pride is the special one that, and one of the only ones that, in the fruit that can really take away from, having one thing of the heaven that really matters to you. Is really having the Bema seat and having the own all of heaven through really being, let's say, being the king of heaven, being the prince of heaven. You get to be where Jesus is, this position of Jesus, and all of the position of Jesus, if you really be humble. Let me tell you something. It's not the false humility that will, get you all of heaven. It's really admitting that you need help and really not getting the promise, not really getting the promise of the highest ranking, but really getting help all the way along. If you need help in the highest ranking from the littlest people, then do that. The littlest people know what they're doing, and then they help the person in the highest ranking, then they'll get the honor. But you'll get more honor from God than that. And even then, if you have a lot of experience, but then you need help with one thing when you have a lot of experience, because some new person, let's say you're very highly experienced in mechanics, and you know all about mechanics, but then this new person comes along, he's inexperienced, but then there's this one experience he has that you do not have. You're trying to fix this electronics, and you know a lot about electronics, but there's something about this one, electronics. It's high tech. It's a Chevrolet Volt. Let's say it has a battery, and you're trying to fix a car, and he's very new, but he's experienced with that. Do you say, "Oh, I have to do it by myself," but I have the experience and I can do it pretty quickly. However, I'm trying to think about what I could do with it, but I've never done this before. Or maybe I've done this before, but you're faster than I am. So if he's really faster at you at fixing electric cars, and he's newer, but you're older with the older mechanics, you're going to be replaced one day, of course. Just know that. Because remember, the newer guys will do the works of the newer guys, and the older guys will do the works of the older guys. And if you know what you're doing with older technology, then great. But let's say someone does coding with computers, and someone decided to put you on coding with cell phones. You've had a lot of experience of computers, but then you had to do a lot of things with the cell phones and touchpads and all that. They didn't know what went where with the coding of a new type of computer. You are, let's say, in your mid-50s, but then this new guy comes along and does it faster than you are because he's in his 20s and because he's only been doing this for 5 or 10 years. And you've been doing this for 30 years, maybe more. And of course you've been doing this for 35 years, let's say. Yeah, let's say you've been doing this for 35 years or more, and he's only had 5 or 10 years. You'd have him help you because he's got the future, and he's going to replace you. Now, let me tell you something. All rules, even in Rome, will change one day because of one person. And when you get older, let's say you're the best fighter, but you're getting older. Let's say in Rome, and you're getting slower. The new guys will replace you. Every time you get older, every time you are special, when you get older, you will be replaced. His humility will catch up with you one day, and you'll get wise and humble. Even though you were proud and young, remember, the humility is still there, because you're not as good as the older guys. But remember, when you get older, you will be replaced. Humility is everywhere. Unskilled, skilled, and then unskilled. Even in the middle, there'll be younger guys that know something better than you do. Yet the younger guy you will know something better than the younger guy, but the younger guy will know something better than you, and vice versa. You have to understand that you're not exactly like everyone else. We're all unique. However, we're not all special. We're not to be proud. We're not over everyone else. If you think, well, we have to be better than everyone else in every aspect of everything else, remember, Jesus doesn't play games, And to the faithful, don't be jealous over someone else's, let's say, their YouTube account. Let's say that you have more people than the other person. Well, because you have more views, it could mean that you're not as good with, the strength of your preaching. Because the stronger your preaching is, the less the world is interested in you. The world wants entertainment, but not the good preaching. However, vice versa, if you have the strength of the preaching, and like all the biblical people in the world, like Moses and Paul, they were strong preachers. People would always get their ideas from them, but they were never always popular. Matter of fact, they're only going to the churches, and the people in the churches were interested in them, but that's it. Some people in the church were not interested in them because, well, they were either persecuted or he was just too rough for them. The Corinthian church, they were not interested in him. They were interested in what he had to say, but he was not popular to them. When he changed them, they're like, oh wow, he's cool, but kudos. But he was just a teacher, and we respect him for that, but he's not popular. I bet that Paul, when he was preaching in the cities of Rome and all that, in Israel and in Jerusalem and all over the place, especially in Rome, he was not heard of. He was only heard of in the church community, but not really. He was a member of the apostles, and they'd always do missionary work. Matter of fact, people have never heard of them because they always went to place to place and were almost never heard of in the church. Apollos was very well heard of. Everyone said, oh, Apollos is really good, but the demons knew Paul. That's the matter. That's the fact that everyone knew about. And the only person that they heard about was Saul. they wondered, well, who's this new Paul guy? And he became unpopular. Then John, who did Revelations, his message was not heard. Not even today. Even by the Jews, they don't even understand. And we're starting to understand some of the things of Matthew. Let me tell you about Jesus. Everyone hated Jesus, except for the disciples. Only 11 people, and that excludes one person, respected Jesus. There were 12 of them that were with Jesus, but excluding one, that's 11. And what's going on right now is that, well, Jesus was not popular at all. So wasn't Paul. People heard about Paul, but he wasn't popular. And when he left, it's as if they forgot about him. And Jesus, well, we hear of him today, but when he was preaching back then, when he was alive, they forgot about him. Except for the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And Sadducees forgot about him later on. The Romans knew about him, but didn't know what he looked like. The Pharisees knew about him, and they wanted to kill him. And everyone else, they either forgot about him, they loved him, forgot about him, or they just hated him, like everyone else. And the 12 disciples, well, they wanted to be with him. They respected him. One of them loved him. But when they went out into their own missionaries, everyone started to recognize him. Because when he died, it didn't matter when he was living. It only mattered when he was alive. Even better, when you're preaching something very powerful, it matters if you're dead. If you're preaching something very weak, it matters if you're living. Because the weak preaching is all about the world. And all the powerful testimonies of pastors and preachers that are not heard about, their testimonies are really, about God. The only ones that are popular are the watchmen. Everyone wants to hear about the watchmen, but they don't listen to them. They listen to only about their own worldly stuff. This is why only 100 million people in the whole entire history of the world are selected to be with God as their husband. And then, let's say, today, if we really think about it today, I would say less than 8 million people are going to be chosen to be with Jesus. The people that are raptured, well, they're going to be 20 million people raptured. However, a third of them will be accepted for the church. Because if Jesus said, "Choose me directly," there'll be a lot fewer people in heaven. However, it's not to be that way. He says that there has to be reward for certain things, for works. If works are not meaning anything, it just means you don't have love. And that means, well, you're just a clanging cymbal, and you're going to hell. Love and faithfulness, I believe, are the two things that really matter for salvation. Love comes from faithfulness. And this is all the things that are of love. Joy, peace, gentleness, kindness, long-suffering, and, self-control, and even gentleness and all that. It's just all parts of, and goodness. All parts of that are part of love. You cannot be holy like Jesus is holy. However, He can make you holy because He has chosen you not only chosen you, but He accepted Him both ways. Once you accept Him, He really chose you. And once you really choose Him, you've given yourself evidence that He's really chosen you. Why am I saying this? Because many of you are really popular but questioning God. Many of you relate to each other because you're popular. The less popular people are those that you're jealous about. Because, well, you think, well, you're too good for me. I'm too unnatural. But we're all human beings. We all have faults. I have a problem with lust. I used to be a Satanist. There is nothing like butterflies and rainbows about us. The only difference is between you and me is that you're questioning God. I'm basically giving you a testimony about God. But that just means that's the only there's only the only difference. And the only between basically the both of us, the only difference between the world and us is the world thrives over sin and we do not. And the religious Pharisees, they chose more of them than God. That's the fourth area that they have to go with. So if you're wondering, don't question God. Choose Him. This is why you're popular. This is why you're questioning God. Alright, I'll be done now, okay?